I'm going to go over with you a few things on how to use your dial caliper. First of all, the top of your dial caliper has a set screw on it. And so if you loosen that screw, it will allow your dial caliper to move back and forth. How you move it back and forth, you have a roller right here. If you put your thumb on the roller, you can roll that dial caliper back and forth. All right. One thing that I want you to be aware of is, first of all, we don't want to take this set screw out all the way. So you don't need to unscrew it all the way to make it work. Just one turn is plenty. It will be loose, and then you'll be able to move your dial caliper. The next thing that I want you to see is if I zoom way in on my dial caliper here, you can see there is a set of very small gears. And so if we look at those gears are right here. It's called a rack. What happens a lot of times with these dial calipers is if you open and close them too fast, so if you're not using this thumb roller to move it in and out, if you were just pull on this very fast, some of those gears in there would get skipped, or it would jump them, and that causes the dial caliper to be off. And so we want to make sure our dial caliper is reading accurately. So we want to make sure that we are very careful when we're opening and closing the caliper. The other dial that's on the bottom will adjust your dial setting. And so if it is all the way closed and the dial is not on that 0, you can adjust that with this. Some of you will see that some of the dial calipers we have, the 0 is all the way off over here on the side. And you need to line it up that way. And what's happened is that gear has been jumped, like I said. The rack and the gear that goes with that rack have been skipped. All right? So that's the basics of how to operate the dial caliper. Now, with this dial caliper, we can do 4 different types of measurement. And so if you go ahead and grab one of these measurement blocks, I can show you how to do that. The first type of measurement is called outside diameter. And so if I take my dial caliper here and I open it up and then I close it around my object, this is called an outside diameter measurement. And so what we're doing is we're getting a measurement. Now, when you are measuring something, you don't want to have the dial caliper be like clamped onto the object. You want it to be fairly loose so that you can pull on and off. And so once I had that reading, I could then read my dial caliper and get my measurement for the it would be the depth of this object. All right. Another way we can measure using our dial caliper, if I turn my object this way, we can use inside diameter measurement. And so I'm using these at the top here, and I would place the inside diameter guides right on the inside where I want to measure, and then I could measure them right there like that, and I could get my measurement. One of the biggest mistakes I see people using the dial caliper, they'll try to use the outside diameter measurements and just try to line this up. You don't need to do that because you have a tool built into the caliper that will do it for you. So you measure the inside diameter right here. 2 other measurements we can use, ways to use this. If we wanted to get the height of this object, you can simply place the object on the back side of the caliper where that step is located, and that will give you a dimension as well. And so if I wanted to see how the step height of this object right here, I could measure it right like that with my caliper. I'll show you it from the other view. Get the measurement, get it set up the way I want. I can pull my dial caliper off and I could go ahead and read and record that dimension. And so it's by utilizing this step on the back side of the caliper. The last way that we can use it, if you look at the end of your dial caliper, it has a depth gauge that comes out. And so if I wanted to measure how deep something was, for instance like this slot in our measurement block, I could go ahead and use that depth gauge and line it up right like that, and then again I could take that off and read the caliper and record the measurement. And so those are the basics of your dial calipers and how to use them. Make sure that when you are using your dial caliper, you use it carefully so that we can make sure our instruments are precise and accurate.